Welcome to the Heart of Money podcast, where we discuss the personal and emotional elements of money and the impact that money has on every area of your life. I'm Austin Black, a personal finance coach that helps couples overcome their fear and frustration of financial management so they can take complete control of their money. What started as a desire to learn the fundamentals of money management has turned into a passion for helping couples work together to achieve financial success and strengthen their relationship with each other. Whether you're looking for the best strategies to manage your money as a couple, or you're tired of struggling to gain traction and want to overcome the fear and frustration associated with finances, I'm here to help, and this show is for you. Ready to learn more? Then let's talk about the heart of money. Well, most people think that in order to become debt-free, have financial security, get anywhere in life with your money, you have to either make a lot of it or spend very little of it. And the reality is that neither one of those are completely true. In fact, I've got a training I'm going to walk you through called the Financial Freedom Blueprint that's going to show you how to become debt-free and have financial security without the need for a huge income or restrictive lifestyle. I'm offering this training live once a month. So head on over to freedommoneycoach.com/training and you can get signed up for free. In this training, I'm going to walk you through the exact strategies that I teach my clients on how to get on the same page with their spouse, create a plan for their money, and accomplish their financial goals through behavior management. It's going to be so much fun. You're going to learn a ton. You're going to walk away inspired, motivated, and encouraged to achieve your financial goals this year. So head on over to freedommoneycoach.com/training. Hey folks, welcome back to the Heart of Money, episode 97. I'm your host, Austin Black, and I'm joined by another great financial coach I've gotten to know here recently, Miss Dawnette Palmore. Dawnette is a speaker, podcaster, and founder of Your Money on Purpose Coaching, where her mission is to empower high-income earning women to manage their finances effectively. Dawnette discovered the power of maintaining a vision-focused approach rather than simply adhering to a budget, and this shift has allowed her to overcome debt, save, and invest for the future. And since 2015, she has positively impacted the lives of hundreds of women, guiding them to create thriving and profitable businesses, live life on their terms, and achieve financial peace, which we all want to accomplish. So, Dawnette, I'm excited to have you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here too. One of my favorite topics, money.
Yes. And we are in the minority in saying that, I know. Because very few people like to talk about money, and that's why everyone is struggling, I feel like. And we can have a whole podcast episode on that, I'm sure, which we might today. We'll see how today's conversation goes. But either way, we're going to have a lot of fun. So tell people a little bit more about you and your business and where you're located, and help us get to know you a little bit better.
Yes. So, I'll just start. I've been married 26 years. We have a blended family of 7 children, 3 grandchildren, 2 dogs, and 3 granddogs. They count just as much as everybody else.
Yep.
We've been small business owners, or I call them now micro business owners, for 23-ish years. We've opened business, we've closed businesses, and we've had partners rip us off. So it's been a journey. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yes.
And you always take wisdom on with those. And about 10 years ago, I would say about 11-ish years ago, I looked up and I was like, we make more money than we ever had, but where the heck is it going? We're in debt, we're not saving, we have no retirement, and of course we're teaching our children really bad money habits. So found some systems and processes that made it doable and not overwhelming, because when we think about all the things we have to do, it could be like super. I was overwhelmed thinking about it, so it took me so long to actually get on track with stuff. But once I did, it just brought me this peace, and I just wanted to share that with other people. And so 10 years ago, actually in October, will be I was actually Proverbs Financial Coaching, and I rebranded a couple years ago to Your Money on Purpose.
Okay. That's awesome. So what got you started in the coaching? And then obviously I'm sure there was something with that branding change. Kind of where are you at today with stuff?
Yeah, I started because just like I saw that, not only do we have our personal, but we have our business, and they touch each other no matter what. They're not supposed to actually physically touch, so make sure you keep those separate. But, they intertwine with each other. And once I got that peace and understanding, I was like, I have to share this with people. This has to go throughout the world. And just the more that I share, the more clients I serve, the more of the problem I see that money is, and it really doesn't have to be.
Yeah. I think so many of us in America, I could be wrong in this, but I feel like we have like this denial of the reality because we don't want to face what we don't know or we aren't, familiar with. And I think that's why people like you and me play such a vital and important role in our clients' lives, because there comes a point in time where you either have to know how to deal with the reality of your situation or change the reality of your situation. And I think if you decide to change it, then you're going to have greater progress, greater, life, everything. But again, no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to really experience and deal with it. And yet I always say that money affects every area of your life. So if you can't figure out how to talk about it, your life is going to face the consequences. So that's my perspective. I'm sure you probably have had similar experiences. I know you got a unique client base right now. So tell me who you're working with and how you're helping them.
Yeah, so I work with women business owners, and I help them really to get all their finances in order, because what I usually see with small businesses, solopreneurs, is they're commingling their finances. They don't even know what their business makes. They don't know what their business costs. It's just like a personal mess with a business mess on top.
Yes.
And so really helping them to get that figured out really empowers them to be able to grow their business. Because as you know, when we have a financial stress cloud around us, we can't do anything. We get stuck. We can't see. We don't hit goals. We can't grow. And so helping them to remove that cloud so that they can grow their business and serve the people that they were meant to serve.
I love that. We often don't realize how much our personal lives impact our business and vice versa. And I think if we could step back and see that split perspective, it would probably scare some of us, the realities of what we're doing to ourselves. But at the same time, I think it also empowers us to say, okay, if one of these areas is off, we could change that and improve our entire, atmosphere, our entire reality. So I know a lot of what I do is working with couples, but the same elements apply. For example, if someone is in a career and that career is affecting their marriage and their money, kind of correlate a little bit how you see that working within your clients, or even just in general, how business, whether you're employed or whether you're working somewhere, how that has a direct correlation to your marriage and your money inside of your household.
Well, money affects all of our relationships, right? Because if we're broke, we're not going to be nice. We get grumpy because we're stressed out. We get sick, and the whole hamster wheel just keeps going. But I'll give you an example. So I had a couple who I was coaching. They had been married 34 years when they came to me, and they didn't talk about money. They called their budget a little black book, and he got it one year and she got it the other year. And it was simply just to put down what they did. There was no accountability. They didn't question it. And they had acquired quite a bit of debt. They were about, I would say, 7-ish years out of retirement.
Okay.
And they were behind, right? And stressed out, not talking. So we were working together. And just this beautiful thing happened. Because now they were on the same page. They were able to work together as a team, as opposed to, relying on each other to do it, and neither one of them did. They paid off all their debt, and they actually made it through COVID without any issues because they had a substantial emergency fund saved.
Nice.
And they were tripling their retirement contributions.
Oh my.
Yeah. So it's amazing what we can do as a team when we become a team and we open the communication, we talk about it and not fight about it or ignore it or sweep it under the rug or give each other a book to figure it out.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about just that whole teamwork communication mentality. Every coach I've talked to, and myself included, that is the fundamental key to be successful with money in your marriage. If you're not talking about it, if you're not communicating about it, if you're not engaged together to where it's not me versus you, or you're doing this, I'm doing that, but we are doing things together, that is, if you can't get that in place, in my opinion, you're not going to have near as much success. And every coach I've talked to has said that that is like the biggest struggle initially in getting people to have momentum and traction. Mm-hmm. What are some of the strategies that you have seen work really well? For example, if the woman is the one that's trying to get everything in line, and her husband isn't necessarily on the same page or on the same boat, but she knows that they need to get together. What does that look like to get that conversation started?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, because I think just kind of opening the conversation, like, hey, can we talk about this? Mm-hmm. Hey, can you look at this? Hey, can we plan together? As we know, a lot of people end up in divorce because it's really the root is money, because there's not conversation. And I have had clients, I've been working with them, and the husband got up and left the room.
Yeah.
He did not want to talk about it anymore. And you know what? Sadly, they're divorced now.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to, sometimes I think one of them will put the burden of the money on the other. And then it gets so stressful that you lash out, right? Because we're human, and that's what we do. We get upset and we lash out. But if we can come together and just say, you know what, can we talk about this? Can we look at this together? What are some things you'd like to see? And really just start opening those conversations and even saying, hey, you know what, we're in a little bit of trouble, or we're going to get into trouble if we don't start making changes.
Yeah. I love how you use the word burden there. I think that's something that we don't want to acknowledge, but yeah, it's a reality of what finances can do to a person, to a marriage, to a relationship. And I always say that if your money is off, it's going to, like you said, it's going to affect other relationships, but it's also going to affect other just pieces of your life. And if those pieces of your life are off, it's going to affect your money. It's this interchanging dynamic of everything that you experience. But we don't want to acknowledge the fact that it is a burden. I think a lot of times we say, well, we're stressed out by it, or, we can't figure it out, or we just don't want to deal with it. But the reality is we don't know how to get past the burden of what that does to our mental, emotional, physical health sometimes. And that's why I preach so adamantly the need for a couple to be on the same page and to figure this out. Because like you said, it can lead to divorce if you don't. It leads to significant financial stress. It leads to complicating every area of your life otherwise. And we have had so many conversations on this podcast around the nuances of those conversations and the importance of them. But something that always comes to mind for me as we're talking about that is being able to come together and not present your ideas and perspective and expect your spouse to jump onto it, but to meet them where they are and to engage in that unity, because we're never going to we're never going to get to where we want to be if we're starting in different spots. We have to find that common ground of agreeance, and we want to change this. We want to understand each other. So, and maybe you can relate to some of this in your own personal experience. But what are some ways that men and women can come together and find that unity when there maybe be one person that is all about changing money stuff, and one person is like, I don't care, I want to experience that. How do we find that connection of understanding each other to create the unity?
I think one thing you can do is kind of ask the person what their goals and dreams are. Because sometimes we don't talk about that either. It's almost like we coexist, right? He does her thing, she does her thing, and then they have a family in the house or whatever, or not. But we don't talk about, what are we doing? What are we trying to accomplish here, separately and together? And maybe just start with dreaming with him or her a little bit. Dreaming with your significant other and asking them what they want without any expectation.
Yes, I love that. Man, there's a whole other podcast just with that phrase right there. Without expectations. Let's dig into that a little bit because, man, you just opened up a can of worms for my mental process here. There is so much expectation around how we handle money. And I talk a lot about the concept of nerd and free spirit within a couple of how, we're making choices based upon how we view life, how we view money, and that all, again, impacts each other, but we expect our spouse to have the same viewpoint. And so many times they do not have the same viewpoint. What is it like whenever we have failed expectations or misaligned expectations, and how do you think we can adjust that to where we do know that our spouse isn't going to see the same way that we are, and we accept that, and we balance that with our own perspective, and then those two complement each other? How have you seen that being a situation that a couple can experience?
Yeah, that's a deep question. But I would say, I would say the first thing you need to do is maybe really get with yourself and think about, what is it that I truly believe about money, and where did that belief come from?
Yes.
And maybe ask your significant other to do the same.
Yes.
What is it that you believe about money, and where did it come from? Because we can do a whole podcast about where our money thoughts come from.
Right.
But we have to respect that. Like, they say opposites attract, and it's true. We weren't attracted to our significant other because they were like us. It's
Right.
because they brought something out of us that maybe was hidden, or they're not like us. My spouse is nothing like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that because he keeps me calm. And I
Right.
keep him adventurous. And we have to remember that we're not the same people. We're not going to be the same people. And how can we respectively come together on this? Because if we don't make it with money, we're not going to make it anywhere else. It's going to eventually fall apart. And if we don't have hard conversations, they're just going to keep getting brushed under the rug.
Yes.
And then one day the carpet's going to get pulled, and there's going to be a mess, and nobody wants to deal with it. And we end up with a bad situation.
Yeah.
But also keep in mind, whatever we do in our house, we're showing our children. They see it. You cannot go behind a closed door and fight. They hear it. You cannot pretend like, you're hiding anything, because you can hide nothing from your children.
Right.
They pick up on energy. It's like, they live in like a spiritual realm almost, right? Because they pick up on all that stuff. And we have to remember, whatever we're doing, we're showing our children. So the question for the wife is, do you want to show your daughter that you're not going to talk to your spouse about money? Husbands, do you want to show your sons that they're not going to talk to their wives about money? Like, what is it that we want to show our children?
A comical tangent of that. So my wife and I, here several months ago, but this year, we finally kind of made a commitment to once a month we're going to sit down in the living room, pull the computer up, go through our budget. We had such a hard time finding the time, throughout the week to do that. Like, we decided we're going to put it on the calendar. This is where we're going to do it, and just make a point to make that a priority. Well, majority of the time it ended up being like right after dinner, and our girls would be in the living room there with us. So it came to be a little bit of a joke that my wife and I said, girls, we need to talk to each other, that they thought we were going to go over the budget. So they started saying, they're going to start looking at the budget, we got to leave the room. So they started picking up on what our activities were. And I want to take that story and then your comments and kind of lean into this other topic that we're going to talk about, because the impact that our marriage has on our kids, like you said, they glean everything. And we've always heard the saying, what's not taught is caught, I believe is how it goes. What are some things that you have in your own life and with your clients seen where the way that you manage your money as a couple trickles down to your kids' understanding and awareness and what they are learning, maybe even subconsciously?
Well, from my own experience, my kids were fairly, I guess they were between the ages of like 9 and 10, 11 when we started doing this. And so when I talk to them about it, they say they don't remember anything else, which is probably a good thing.
Right.
But what I see it transpire, like, when it was time for them to get a car, I didn't buy them a car. They had to save money for a car. And they could not buy a car unless they had a job because I wasn't paying for gas or maintenance or insurance. So it was teaching them responsibility and that things cost money. Like, it's not cheap. And you have to put money into the bank account in order to swipe your card or to spend money. So teaching them those little things, watching them as they were adults, paying their way through college, figuring things out. I can probably say I'm a bird launcher. My kids are out and they're not boomerang children. They haven't come back. And that's because of the financial principles that have been instilled in them. Does it mean that everything's, unicorns and rainbows for them? No, but they figure it out because that's what I've taught them. If something happens, it doesn't mean you go running back home. What can I do to fix this? What do I need to do to make this better? And, those are vital skills that we have to teach our children. Otherwise, they're going to end up in credit card debt because the first thing they do when they get to college is they get a free pizza with a credit card.
Right.
And it's ridiculous. And no one's going to teach them about it. The bank is not going to teach them about it. The school is not going to teach them about it. We have to teach them about it. And we do that in our relationships, right? In our home, just like you and your wife. I don't know why the girls are running. It's not what they want to talk about. But what a great opportunity to bring them in and show them this is what life costs. Like, it's not cheap. You guys want to rush and be an adults. Well, let me show you the reality of what adulthood is, right? Like, and help them to start considering those things. Even making small changes like giving my children their money to go school shopping, change their perspective on costs and what they wanted to spend on something.
Yes.
It was insane. Like, I was shocked when I saw it. I was like, wow, okay, this is working.
Right. Our kids are so much smarter than we give them credit for, I think, sometimes. I know, my oldest, she's 5.5, almost 6 years old. She'll tell you she's 5 3/4. And she just, is such a sponge. And funny enough, she'll remember the things that you never thought she'd remember, forget the things that are important, it seems like. Yeah. But they see everything, they hear everything, and they understand it at a unique level, I think. And I don't know that there's ever a age that's too young, to expose them to that. I mean, like I said, our oldest is 5. We got a 3.5-year-old and our baby. So they don't understand anything, but yet they see it and they know something's happening. They know that we go to Aldi's and garage sales because that's what we do. And they get excited about that. And I think, as our kids get older, instilling those principles and those lifestyle pieces and explaining to them how you're making a decision really is important to help them get equipped. I was even on another podcast a few months ago, and we were talking about our parents really probably didn't learn the best way to handle money. Therefore, we're having to relearn how to handle and manage money. But we have an opportunity to teach our kids the right way the first time and kind of reverse the financial stress and trauma and conflict that we have in America today. But it's our responsibility. They're not going to learn it on their own. And I think that's something that we always have to keep in mind is not only is it our job to parent our kids, but it's our job to set our kids up for success in that area. We're great about teaching them about life and marriage and all these things that are going to impact them, but we don't really talk about the money part. And again, we're going back to our very first comment at the beginning of this conversation. We don't talk about it. Let's start talking about it. So to that point, what are some great conversations that you and your kids had growing up, or as they were growing up, that helped them understand this is how life and money works?
Yeah, I think one is, being open about it. Like, this is not what we're going to do anymore. Something I always told them, they're like these people get to watch this movie. And I said, well, that's great for their family, but it doesn't work for ours. And they're like, oh, like, it's okay that other people are doing that. We're just not doing that because we're being held to a higher standard. Same thing with our money. Just opening up conversations because they're watching and, you know, letting them see how much things cost, like your little girls, how much this costs. And to them, it's probably like millions of dollars, right? Because they, you know, $20 is a lot of money to little kids. But just helping them to understand that. And then, you know, when they save their birthday money and stuff like that, they wanted to buy something. Well, there's that price plus tax. A lot of parents don't teach their children about tax, and then they go to buy a $20 thing, and it's not $20. It's $20, depending where you're at, $25. If you're in California, it might be $25.
Right.
But, you know, that's an important thing. You know, really, what is the value of money? Do you really want that? And then giving them that muscle to save. So I had got those little Larry Burkett ATMs. So they gave, what does it have? Spend, gave, give, save. So also giving them a spirit of giving, of generosity. And they didn't have to give it to the church. They could give it to whatever they wanted to give it to. You know, whatever, is there another nonprofit you want to give it to? Somebody you want to help? Whatever. Just giving them that spirit of generosity and having those conversations like, look what you can do and look what happens when you pay cash for a car. You don't have to worry about a payment. So, but also there's a responsibility with having a car, you know, having that conversation. This is insurance. How much does it cost? What does it cover? Making sure you have your deductible saved, you know, gas, and finding out how expensive that is, and things with maintenance, and helping them to save for those things that we know are going to come, right? We can plan for the unexpected and the expected. Planning for a short-term savings, we know these things are coming up. The emergency fund covers everything else. Things we don't know coming up. And just, you know, showing them and having the conversations and then holding them accountable. Because if we just, you know, give them the ATM machine or the envelopes and hope they're doing it, they're probably not going to do it. They may do it for a little while, but holding them accountable to that, just as they're going to hold us accountable.
They're going to call us out if we do something wrong.
Right. And I remember, you know, when we did cash envelopes, and I'd go to the grocery store, they're all watching me to see which envelope I'm pulling the money out of. Is she really getting that out of the grocery money, or is she doing something else?
Yeah. That's kind of funny.
But they are watching absolutely everything that we do. We, like I said, we can't hide things from them. So the best thing to do is to have conversations with them. Ask them what questions they have about money. What do you know about money? What do you think about money?
Yeah, that's really good. Something that, again, I think we lose sight of, how much they can learn, how quick they can learn it. And I know me personally, you know, don't necessarily take the time to have those quick conversations. You know, it's more of a just go in and do it type of thing. I think you're right. And the more we can talk about that and make that the norm, I think is the key. You know, make it where it's not an anomaly, it's the norm. Because otherwise we are normal, which is broke, and don't know how to manage money. So if we can switch the table there and make good money handling the norm that they experience, it's almost like they're going to question then what is the other way. You know, why are other people doing that? Well, it's because this is, you know, a different way of managing. Something that just popped in my head as you were talking there. So you mentioned using the cash envelopes, the kids, you know, kind of watching, see what you were doing there. I know I personally, I use a little bit of cash. Otherwise, I use my debit card tremendously. What would you recommend to parents who, let's say that they were in one of three camps? They were either using a credit card judiciously and not carrying a balance, but they were using a credit card. They were using a debit card, or they were using more of a cash payment system. How would you recommend that they communicate with their kids the good money management principles like you kind of shared there with your cash envelopes, if they aren't using the cash, but they're still managing properly and doing different methods? How would you encourage parents to approach that?
Yeah, so I don't use the cash envelopes anymore. I did do that.
Right.
But I think you would have to be even more diligent in your spending plan and really looking at it. And you're going to have to check a little more often, right? Am I staying on track? And I know you can get apps and make sure you're staying on track and stuff like that, but you even have to be more diligent in that spending plan and keeping tracking all that stuff to make sure that you're staying on track.
Right.
And having goals, because I think, people say, I don't want to do a budget. It's going to tell me what I can't do. Right. So let's change the language to spending plan.
Yep.
Let's make a plan with our money, but let's also have goals. Like, what are we shooting for? What do we want to do with our life? What do we want to do with our money, our business, our family? Like, we have to have a plan, because if we don't, we're just going to, be a sail in the wind and just going whichever way the wind takes us.
Right.
And that usually doesn't end up in a good spot. So I think just, being even more diligent and looking at it. You said you meet with your wife once a month. If you're not doing cash envelopes, I would say do it at least once a week.
Right.
Have a money date once a week so that you're really keeping track. I have some clients who use an app, so they have a money date every week to make sure they put those, whatever they spent, in the correct category. Because then there's that as well.
Yes, definitely.
Holes that are problems too.
Right.
Whatever you use, you got to make sure you're using it correctly and using all the tools that it has so that it works properly and does what you want it to do.
Yeah. So how would you have a conversation with your kids as you're teaching them how you're managing money, if you're using the cards versus the cash, so it's not quite as tangible, not quite as, right there in front of them, the payment transaction. How would you teach and communicate with your kids that you're still doing the same thing, but you're doing it in a different way?
I think just showing them, like, hey, if we're not using cash, here's what we have to do. We have to look at our bank statements, look at what we've been doing, and making sure we're taking account for it and what we said we wanted to do. And making sure that we're staying on track. I mean, that's all you can do, right?
Yeah.
And just to be even more diligent, because, studies show that when we swipe plastic, our brain's dead.
Yes.
So we want to make sure, when we do that, we're being intentional with it.
Right.
And we're sticking to the plan
that
we created. So it's not a plan somebody did for you. It's
right.
a plan that you created because this is what you said you wanted to do, because these are the goals that you want to.
You're accountable to yourself.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and that $150 for one cart of groceries at Walmart, even though it still hurts with the cart, it hurts even more whenever you're handing over the Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah, because then you're also realizing, like, okay, well, I don't have this much left.
Right.
Like, this has to last me till the next, pay date or however you have set that up.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Dawnette, is there anything else that you feel is really vitally important to teaching your kids or working with your spouse? Those are the two, the two key areas of money management whenever it comes to our relationships and our family models. Is there anything else that you feel is really important that you want to share with guests today in either of those two relationships?
Yeah, I think, we have the power to change the generations that come after us.
Mm-hmm.
And we should take that very seriously. Like, we can change our family tree. And to me, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah,
because I come from a family of poverty and abuse and addiction. So I have broken all of that. That's pretty cool. And I'm teaching my children to do the same, who get to teach their children. And we have just changed our family tree. And that's powerful, because it's not just, a legacy isn't just an amount of money we leave. It's what we leave in our children and what they leave in their children.
Yes.
And that even makes me want to make sure that my husband and I's relationship is solid, that we're making sure we're working on ourselves and we're being good stewards of everything, not just our money, but our possessions and our relationships.
I love that. Yeah, I think anything you do in life, if you're not trying to improve it, you're doing it wrong. Or you have the right attitude towards it. We're constantly learning, we're constantly improving, we're constantly trying to make things better around us and for others around us. And I love your comments there around legacy, because that's very near and dear to my heart. With our family, a lot of what we do, and not only allowing them to have a better life, but encouraging them to be better people in their own life, I think is very important to keep in mind. So thank you so much for sharing those tidbits and those ideas. As we kind of wrap up today, what are some ways that people can connect with you, follow you, engage with you more if they want to see what Dawnette's up to?
Yeah, well, I'm in all the places, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn at Your Money on Purpose. My website's yourmoneyonpurpose.com. My email is yourmoneyonpurpose@gmail.com. So super easy to find me.
Perfect. And if you have any questions, Your Money on Purpose needs to happen all the time.
Exactly.
Do not slack on that. Well, then it was so much fun to have you on the show today, and just have good, candid conversation. I always love visiting with coaches. I love hearing different perspectives, and I think we got to talk a lot in alignment today, which is always fun. I always say the fundamentals of money management don't change, but how you practice them sometimes it has fluctuation. But I think the way that we both spoke today, we really have a lot of agreements on how to handle money, and that's a lot of fun to converse about.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing and for being a part of the community. Look forward to having you back again sometime.
Yes, thank you so much. I had a great time.
Hey folks, did you find today's episode valuable? If so, I would truly appreciate it if you left a 5-star review and shared the episode with a friend. My goal is to help as many couples as possible in their journey to gaining complete control of their money. Also, I have a free gift that I want to share with you for taking the time to listen to today's show. I have a brand new video training that outlines 5 steps for making a budget that will give you true financial freedom. In this training, I share how you can create a budget in a matter of minutes and make it easy to implement. Who doesn't want that, right? You'll learn what categories you need to cover all the bases each month and how to protect yourself against financial stress. You can access your free gift at freedommoneycoach.com/budget guide. That's freedommoneycoach.com/budget guide.